Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that tries to, connects the dots and pull out the big ideas from some pretty complex stuff.
Glad to be diving in.
So today we're tackling this ancient philosophical idea. It's called Candyman versus doctors. And honestly, it feels incredibly relevant right now.
It really does. It comes straight out of Plato's Gorgias.
Right, where he's critiquing the sophists. So our mission today is basically to unpack what this means for truth, for persuasion, for well-being back then, and importantly for us today.
And hopefully give you a kind of shortcut to understanding something surprisingly deep.
Exactly. You'll get a new way to think about everything from your newsfeed to, well, your own choices.
Okay, so setting the scene. Plato's Gorgias. We're talking late 5th, maybe early 4th century BCE. It's a Socratic dialogue.
Meaning Socrates is the main character, Plato's mentor?
Precisely. And he's going head-to-head with the sophists. Now, who were these guys? Think of them as traveling teachers in ancient Greece.
Kind of like consultants almost.
Sort of, yeah. They claimed they could teach virtue, arte, and practical skills, especially rhetoric, the art of persuasion, and crucially, usually for a fee.
Okay, so what was Plato's beef with them?
Well, Plato, speaking through Socrates, basically argued they were more interested in winning arguments and pleasing the crowd than in actually finding or telling the truth. That's the core critique.
Got it. So let's dig into that core analogy Socrates uses in Gorgias. It's pretty vivid.
It is.
He asks you to picture two figures. First, the Candyman, or, the pastry chef, the confectioner.
Right.
This person gives you sweet, tasty treats. It feels good immediately, requires zero effort, zero discipline, pure pleasure.
We all know that feeling.
But, and here's the catch. In the long run, it can seriously damage your health. So the Candyman skill isn't really about making you better off. It's just about making you feel good right now.
And then you have the opposite, the doctor.
Right. The doctor prescribes medicine, maybe even surgery. The treatment itself, it could be bitter, painful, definitely not something you welcome in the moment.
Often the opposite of pleasant.
Exactly. But the whole point is to restore your health or preserve it. The doctor's skill is about helping you, genuinely helping, even if it feels bad short term.
And Socrates uses this brilliantly. He says the sophists, they're the Candymen. They feed the audience what it wants to hear. They use rhetoric like sugar-flattering, entertaining.
But not necessarily nourishing for the soul, so to speak.
Precisely. Whereas philosophers, at least in Plato's ideal view, are the doctors. They care about the health of the soul. And that often means telling people uncomfortable things.
Challenging beliefs, demanding self-control, things that don't always feel good.
Yeah, the hard truths.
It's interesting to think about the context back then, too. Why did sophism take off?
Well, 5th century BCE Athens was booming. It was a democracy, and public speaking suddenly became super important, like essential for politics, for court cases.
So if you wanted to succeed, you needed to be persuasive.
Exactly. And the sophists stepped in to meet that demand. They taught rhetoric, argumentation, for money.
But Socrates and Plato were suspicious.
Deeply suspicious. They saw rhetoric without a grounding in philosophy, in truth, as just manipulation. Socrates actually called it a knack, kolakia flattery. He compared it to cooking.
Pleasant, but not a true skill aimed at genuine good, not a techden.
Right. Which brings us to that fundamental question they were wrestling with. Should persuasion aim just to please, or should it aim to benefit?
And is truth worth pursuing even when it's, well, uncomfortable? How do you balance being effective with having integrity?
And that tension, that's why this whole Candyman doctor thing sticks around. It's not just ancient history.
Not at all.
It pops up everywhere. Politics, comforting lies versus hard truths, teaching, keep kids happy or really challenge them, media, feel-good clicks, or stuff that makes you think, maybe even feel uneasy.
It's everywhere. And what's fascinating is how well it lines up with, human development and psychology.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It maps surprisingly well onto how we mature. Or sometimes, how we don't.
Okay, let's trace that. Think about early childhood, maybe ages 2 to 7, Piaget's pre-operational stage.
Right. Very concrete thinking. All about the now.
Exactly. So for a little kid, candy tastes good now. Therefore, candy goes good. Medicine tastes bad now. So medicine is bad. That abstract idea of future health, it's just not really there yet.
They can't process the long-term benefit over the immediate yuckiness.
Then middle childhood, say 7 to 11, concrete operational stage. They start getting cause and effect a bit more. delayed consequences.
They can understand why medicine might be needed, especially if an adult explains it.
Yeah, but it's often more about trusting the adult, the authority figure, than really internalizing the long-term logic themselves. The short-term reward, the pleasant taste is still super powerful.
Still a strong pull.
Then comes adolescence, 12 to 18, formal operational stage. Now you've got the capacity for abstract thought, for long-term planning.
Intellectually, they get it. Okay, this unpleasant thing now will help me later.
And it's a big but. The prefrontal cortex, the part for impulse control, judgment, it's still under construction.
Still developing, yeah. So the immediate pleasure, the candy, can still easily win out over that long-term logic.
Ideally, by adulthood, we figure this out. We integrate the ability to tolerate discomfort for a greater good, not just literal medicine.
But saving money instead of splurging, having that difficult conversation instead of avoiding it, exercising when you don't feel like it.
Right. That's when the doctor's advice, even if unpleasant, starts to feel valuable, maybe even necessary.
And this connects to so many core psychological ideas. Walter Mischel's marshmallow test, right? The kids who could wait for the bigger reward.
They tended to do better later in life. Candy is the one marshmallow now. Medicine is waiting for 2 marshmallows later. Delayed gratification.
Exactly. And our willingness to swallow that bitter medicine, those uncomfortable truths, really depends on trust. Do we believe the doctor, the expert, the authority figure actually has our best interests at heart?
That's huge. If you don't trust the source, why take their unpleasant advice?
And then there's cognitive dissonance. It feels wrong when something unpleasant is supposed to be good for us. It clashes with that basic pleasant, good, unpleasant, bad wiring.
So learning to accept the medicine involves kind of overriding that initial gut reaction, reframing discomfort as potentially valuable.
Maturing, essentially.
Okay, so let's bring this right into today. Because, man, this dynamic feels hyper-relevant now. We're adults, supposedly, but we still seem to choose the candy a lot.
All the time.
Think about it. Easy access junk food versus cooking healthy, binge watching versus, I don't know, reading a challenging book or getting enough sleep.
Avoiding difficult conversations in relationships just to keep the peace. For now.
Totally. It feels like more and more our decisions get driven by stories, by personalities, by how something makes us feel emotionally, rather than by, like, the actual facts or what's genuinely good for us.
Absolutely. And today's Candymen are masters at this. They're not just selling literal sugar anymore.
Who are they now?
Well, think about influencers. People follow them often because they feel good, they feel validated, entertained. Even if the advice is superficial or just plain wrong, the personality, the vibe.
Trumps the accuracy. Yeah, I see that.
Advertising, too. It's often selling an image, a feeling, an identity. The sweetness is the lifestyle they promise, not necessarily the product itself.
And what about public opinion, just going along with what seems popular?
That's another big one. Leaning towards what everyone seems to think, even if that consensus is built on shaky ground, maybe misinformation. Popularity becomes a substitute for truth.
So these are all kind of modern versions of that sophistic rhetoric Plato was worried about. Persuasion optimized for clicks, for engagement, for making us feel good.
Rather than for truth or genuine well-being.
Exactly.
But why? Why do we, as adults who often know better, keep falling for the candy?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Several things are probably going on.
Like what?
Well, first, just sheer information overload. There's so much data, so much noise. It's exhausting to try and vet everything. So trusting your gut or a charismatic source feels easier, simpler.
It can feel safer,
Yeah.
less mentally taxing, yeah. Then there's hedonism as a coping mechanism. We're stressed, we're burned out.
So self-care becomes the excuse for indulgence.
Right. Binge watching feels like self-care, but maybe actual rest would be better. Retail therapy feels good, but maybe financial planning is what's needed. The lines get blurry.
I also feel like there's this entertainment inertia. It's just easier to slide into whatever's most stimulating, most dopamine hitting on our phones or screens.
The path of least resistance. Choosing something genuinely beneficial often requires more effort, more activation energy.
And maybe the biggest one, systemic distrust. When the doctors, the experts, the institutions, the authorities get things wrong or seem biased or even corrupt.
Then their bitter medicine starts to look suspicious. Why should we trust them?
And suddenly, ironically, the Candyman's easy sweetness feels safer, more honest almost.
You can. It's a real paradox.
So looking at the bigger picture, it feels like the Candyman's voice is just everywhere now. Louder, slicker, more entertaining.
Definitely more accessible. Meanwhile, the doctor's voice,
Mhm.
often quieter, more cautious, maybe spread across different sources sometimes. Let's face it, kind of boring.
And the whole attention economy rewards the sweet stuff, right? The
Ooh.
clicks, the shares,
The incentives are definitely tilted towards candy, not necessarily towards medicine.
which makes that original question, do you want to be pleased or helped, incredibly complicated today.
Because sometimes the doctor is wrong or has their own agenda. And sometimes, honestly, a little bit of candy is what you need to just get through the day. A small comfort.
And the lines get so blurred, like you said, that motivational influencer might look like a doctor, talk like a doctor.
But be selling pure sugar water, metaphorically speaking. The branding makes it hard to tell.
So what happens if we live on this candy diet for too long? Culturally, I mean.
Well, the consequences seem pretty serious. For one, truth starts to feel optional. Whatever's loudest, most entertaining, most emotionally resonant wins, regardless of facts.
We see that playing out. What else?
Chronic burnout seems linked too. People use these fleeting pleasures as candy to escape problems. But the candy often makes the underlying problems worse, like debt from overspending or health issues from poor diet.
It's a vicious cycle.
Exactly. And we get this kind of shallow consensus. Public opinion gets shaped by shared feelings, by vibes, not necessarily by shared, verified facts. Those agreements are fragile. They fall apart easily.
And ultimately, mistrust just becomes the default setting.
If you can't rely on the doctors, who do you trust? You end up self-medicating, often badly, making poor choices based on bad information or pure emotion.
It really feels like a modern tragedy. Back in Plato's day, you could probably figure out who was the Candyman and who was the doctor if you have attention.
And today, they might be wearing the exact same clothes, using the same language, showing up on the same platforms. It's much harder to distinguish.
Okay, let's make this super practical. What does this everyday candy look like for us adults? Things we reach for knowing, deep down, they're not the medicine.
Oh, the list is long. Food and drink is obvious. Sugary drinks, fast food constantly, too much alcohol, snacking late at night when you're not hungry.
Media habits.
Huge one. Doom scrolling, right? Binge watching shows for hours. Endless scrolling through short videos that fragment your attention. Only reading news that confirms exactly what you already believe.
What about social interactions?
Yeah, that counts too. Getting sucked into gossip or online drama. Posting things just for attention or validation. Using passive-aggressive comments instead of having a direct conversation.
And lifestyle choices.
Procrastinating on important tasks. Overspending on things you don't need. Skipping exercise again and again. Putting off that doctor's appointment or health checkup.
Even mental shortcuts. Like judging people instantly based on a vibe.
Definitely. Or following charismatic figures without ever checking their claims. Reacting emotionally to headlines before even reading the article or verifying the facts. It's all candy. Easy, feels right in the moment, but potentially harmful long term. And the consequences of this constant candy diet, they ripple through everything.
Physically.
You know the drill. Weight gain, heart issues, diabetes, risk from bad diets, and no movement. Poor sleep from too much screen time, especially late at night. Even a weaker immune system from chronic stress and lack of real rest.
Emotionally.
We're seeing spikes in anxiety, irritability,
Yeah.
often linked to social media overload, and that constant comparison game, self-esteem taking hits, feeling kind of numb or disconnected from all the escapism.
And intellectually, what does
Yeah.
it do to our thinking?
It seems to shrink our attention spans, makes it harder to focus on complex, nuanced ideas, because we get used to quick hits of simple information. And crucially, it makes us much more vulnerable to misinformation if we're always choosing the appealing Candyman over the careful doctor.
Okay, so that's the problem. It's pretty bleak. How do we start fixing this? How do we rebuild some trust and get better at telling the candy from the medicine?
It's not easy, but it's possible. It requires conscious effort. First, rebuilding some faith in systems where warranted.
Yeah. When trust is so low.
Maybe start small.
Yeah.
Identify just a few institutions or experts, maybe in specific fields that you've vetted. Look for transparency, track record. Prioritize their input. That's source tiering.
Okay. What else?
Engage constructively, maybe locally. Go to a town meeting, vote in local elections, ask officials direct questions. Humanizing institutions can help, seeing the people behind them.
And avoid black and white thinking.
Absolutely. Recognize that systems can have flaws and successes. Avoid that all good or all bad trap. Hold nuanced views.
All right, so that's about systems. What about personal discernment, spotting the candy in our own lives?
This is key. Cultivating mindfulness in the moment. Before you click, before you react, before you consume, pause. Ask yourself, is this just making me feel good, or is it actually helping me grow?
If it's only the first.
It might just be candy. Also, notice your emotional reactions. When does content make you feel a sudden spike of anger or validation or envy?
Why is that important?
High emotionality is a classic Candyman tool. It bypasses rational thought. So labeling those spikes, feeling angry now, can give you critical distance.
And checking facts versus feelings.
Crucial. Ask, would I still believe this if I didn't like the person saying it, or if it didn't fit my preferred narrative? Try to separate the message from the messenger or your own bias.
And thinking about the root causes. If it's information overload driving us to candy.
Then the counter is intentionally limiting media intake, setting tech-free times, allowing space for actual reflection, not just reaction.
If it's burnout making us crave escape.
Replace the numbing escapes like endless scrolling with genuinely restorative ones. A walk, journaling, calling a real friend, meditating, things that actually recharge you.
And if it's distrust in elites or experts.
Instead of wholesale rejection, focus on verifying specific claims. Don't dismiss everything, investigate the particulars.
This whole discussion makes me think about, well, about this very deep dive, how we're delivering it. It doesn't seem to fit neatly into either category.
It's a really interesting point. Applying the analogy to this,
Yeah,
it feels like something different. Maybe like broccoli-flavored candy.
Broccoli-flavored candy. Explain that.
Okay, so the idea is content that is fundamentally nutritious, it has intellectual substance, encourages reflection, offers insights. That's the broccoli.
But it's wrapped in a format that's designed to be more engaging, more accessible, maybe even enjoyable. Using AI for the voices, the music, the podcast style, that's the candy flavor.
Right, it's not pure candy because the core aim is nourishment, not just pleasure. But it's not pure medicine either because it's trying hard not to be bitter or off-putting. It uses sweetness strategically.
But the problem is people might misjudge it at first glance.
Exactly. They see AI voices or podcast format and maybe instantly think gimmick, synthetic, processed sugar without actually tasting the broccoli inside. They don't realize there's real substance there.
That really highlights something about how we engage online, doesn't it? We skim, we label, we categorize instantly.
We do. And if someone's already suspicious of AI, they might just assume artificial form means artificial content.
Yeah.
They don't separate the presentation from the substance.
But the people who do get it, they're the ones who slow down, who listen past the surface.
Yeah, the curious ones. They engage, they listen, and they recognize the nutritional value beneath the perhaps unexpected flavor.
So why is it so hard to reach the people who might need this kind of broccoli candy the most? The ones stuck on pure sugar.
Well, information overload forces quick filtering. People discard things that look like fluff, even if they aren't. That Candyman reflex cuts both ways.
How so?
Some people grab any shiny candy. Others automatically reject anything that looks appealing or sweet, assuming it must be shallow. They become suspicious of pleasure itself when linked to information.
Wow, so the very perception filter your content could help challenge.
It's the exact filter that stops people from engaging with it in the first place. It's a classic catch-22.
Maybe Plato's model needs updating for today. Maybe there's a third category.
Perhaps, like an enlightened confectioner.
I like that. Someone who makes something genuinely enjoyable, but cleverly embeds real long-term benefits inside.
The audience might not even realize they're getting vitamins along with the sugar until later.
That feels like where good educational content, infotainment, maybe even meaningful art often lives.
It does. But it's a tricky space because people are so skeptical now. Is this fun and good for me? What's the catch? The trust barrier is really high for that combination.
So for a channel doing this broccoli candy thing, what's the takeaway?
Maybe lean into it, own the paradox.
Yeah.
Make looks like candy is actually nutritious, part of the identity.
Directly address the potential misjudgment. Invite people to challenge their own assumptions.
Yeah, play with that metaphor. Signal the intent. It might disarm some of that initial skepticism.
Okay, but let's push deeper. Are there potential downsides or criticisms to this broccoli candy approach itself?
Oh, absolutely. It's not a magic bullet. There are definitely challenges.
Such as?
Well, first, that suspicion of hidden agendas we touched on. Even if your intent is pure, wrapping nutrients in candy can make people wary in today's climate.
They think you're trying to sneak something past them, like propaganda hidden in entertainment.
Exactly. What's the real purpose here? That question can hang over the content, even if the nutrient is just nuance or a complex truth. The blend itself invites suspicion.
Okay, what else?
There's the risk of ending up just preaching to the converted. You might attract an audience that already likes nuance, or is curious about AI, or enjoys philosophical thinking.
So people who get it already.
Right. But you might struggle to reach the very people whose assumptions you hope to challenge, because their initial filters just screen you out. You risk creating an echo chamber, just a more thoughtful one.
And the balance between the broccoli and the candy.
That's a constant tension. Lean too hard on the candy, the engaging format, the fun bits, and you risk looking superficial, like clickbait.
People might question the substance.
But lean too hard on the broccoli, the dense ideas, the complexity, and you lose that accessibility, that charm that makes it different from a dry lecture.
It's a tightrope walk. Are you trying to make learning easy enough for the resistant or rich enough for the committed?
Those can be hard to do simultaneously. And finally, there's just the AI stigma itself.
People assuming artificial means inauthentic.
Yeah, even if the ideas are deeply human and curated, the AI delivery might assume the nutrients themselves are generic, artificial, not organic.
So being transparent about the AI use, but emphasizing the human curation, framing it as chef-crafted fusion might help.
It could. It's about managing that perception proactively.
You know, there's a deep irony here that Plato might find amusing, disturbing.
What's that?
His original Candyman offered pleasure instead of virtue, right? Sweetness without substance.
Correct.
But this broccoli candy idea, or your channel, is trying to offer pleasure plus virtue, enjoyment with substance.
And the irony is
that our modern attention economy, our skepticism, has made us distrust that very combination. We've gotten to a point where even real broccoli, if presented too attractively, might be mistaken for empty candy, and people might reject it because it looks good.
wow, that's a total inversion. The doctor now has to look almost deliberately unappealing or bland just to seem trustworthy.
It's a strange place we've ended up.
So let's bring it back to Plato's core point one last time. Candyman. Pleasure now, potential harm later. Tells you what you want to hear.
Doctor. Discomfort now. Health later. Tells you what you need to hear.
And the fundamental question for all of us in every choice is, do you want to be pleased or do you want to be helped?
Played today. Candy is the easy stuff. Feels good, confirms biases, entertains without effort.
Medicine is the harder stuff.
Yeah.
Might be complex, might challenge you, might feel uncomfortable, but ultimately expands your understanding or improves your life.
And your channel, this broccoli candy.
It's trying to bridge that gap. Enjoyable, accessible, yes, that's the candy flavor. But packed with meaningful, nourishing ideas, that's the broccoli.
The big challenge is that perception gap. People mistaking it for just candy because of the AI format, the podcast style.
And never sticking around long enough to taste the nutrients. It has candy appeal, but also real medicine value. It's caught in the crossfire of how we judge content today.
So for you listening, what should you get out of engaging with something like this? Or any content, really?
Hopefully you leave not just entertained, but thinking differently, feeling like you get a dose of mental nutrition without it feeling like homework.
And maybe, most importantly, you start noticing your own filters, those snap judgments. Why do you dismiss certain things based on how they look or feel initially?
Questioning the form versus substance distinction in your own consumption habits.
Yeah, it feels like your channel, and maybe the future of thoughtful content, is really an experiment. Can pleasure and substance coexist?
And the real challenge isn't just creating it, it's getting all of us, ourselves included, to slow down enough to actually taste both.